Ladies and gentlemen, many of you know when it comes down to Brett Favre, Phil Bryant is knee deep in the allegations as well. So he recently made a request to the court. Phil Bryant asked court to throw out subpoena for Brett Favre Pharma techs. So he did this recently. Mm-mm-mm. I think Phil Bryant knows his goose may be cooked in this whole thing. Former Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant, whose administration saw the misspending of tens of millions of federal welfare funds, is again asking a judge to throw out a subpoena against him in the state's ongoing civil case related to the scandal. A defendant in the civil case filed a subpoena in early October for a large swath of records from Bryant, including his texts with former NFL quarterback Brett Favre about a concussion drug company that received $2 million in stolen welfare funds. In a filing Friday, Brian argued that his personal texts are protected under executive privilege and that the subpoena should either be thrown out or that any records he provide be placed under a protective order. He made a nearly identical response in September to a separate subpoena for his communication related to the new volleyball stadium at his alma mater. This is the University of Southern Mississippi, which was built using $5 million in welfare funds. The latest subpoena comes from Austin Smith, a nephew of convicted former welfare director John Davis. Smith is accused of taking nearly $430,000 in welfare funds contracts he allegedly didn't fulfill. Boy, y'all were just having a good time with that money and not even using it for the purpose it was there for. He has argued in response to the complaint against him, and that if he is liable for welfare misspending, Phil is too. Yeah, you ratting out Phil Bryant, and that the former governor should be added as a defendant. Bryan has rejected this notion. Somebody is ratting on Bryan. Oh man, we'll see how that turns out. Smith should not be allowed to use this proceeding as a political tool to harm the reputation and business of the former politician with whom he disagrees on matters of policy. Bryan's motion reads a protective order would allow Smith to use the subject documents for legitimate purposes in the context of its suit and would disallow him from using them to grandstand in the press with baseless allegations and politically motivated innuendo. So, in Hines County Circuit Court, Judge Faye Peterson has yet to rule on these and several other motions. Well, we'll see what happens. So they are trying to get a hearing on this in January 2023. So it don't look like they have the official date set at this time. So the Mississippi Department of Human Services civil case targets 38 individuals or companies, including Favre, the concussion drug company, and in an attempt to claw back roughly $24 million in misspent welfare funds. That's a lot of money for these people to take. $24 million? Boy, they were like kids in a candy shop. The purchases targeted in the suit to make up a fraction of the nearly 100 million in improper spending that the state auditor, Shad White, uncovered in 2020. So all of this occurred, y'all, when Phil Bryan was still the governor. So they're saying overall, $100 million was misspent while Phil Bryan was the governor. But he really believes he should not be a defendant in this case. I think he should be. Mm-mm-mm. Smith also subpoenaed Bryan for any of his communication related to several other welfare related projects or alleged events, first reported by Mississippi Today, including a fitness program by trainer Paul Lacoste, a virtual reality academy, Labaki Inc., advertising campaigns with conservative talk radio station Super Talk, and Families First. Treatment for Brian's nephew that the governor and his welfare officials officiated at the firing of Debbie Hood, wife of a Democratic candidate for Governor Jim Hood. Out of 26 items requested in the subpoena, Bryan said he did not have responsive records for 11 of them. Bryan denied having any communication as the subpoena request between himself and the state auditor, Shad White, regarding whether you are liable for misappropriating by MDHS. He said he does not possess any communication with the former WWE wrestler Ted DiBiase or his two sons, who received over $5 million in welfare funds, about payment to the wrestlers. Wow. That's why y'all want these high positions, because you want access to all the money. Now you know why they're always the ones trying to push everybody out of the way so they can have these big fancy jobs. That's because they want to get at that money. So Bryan also denied any communication regarding Governor Tate Reeves' effort to obtain funding, whose foundation received $1.3 million in welfare funds. The tech company Labaki, which received $795,000 in welfare funds. The termination of Debbie Hood as an employee of Family Resource Center. However, Bryan said he does possess records and communication surrounding Privacus, much of which Mississippi Today published in its series, The Back Channel, including documents related in any way to any ownership interest in Privacus that you, Bryan, had, have, or that was proposed or suggested to you by any person. Now, according to Bryan, he confirmed that he communicated about this, set up the meeting to talk about his foundation contract with Paul Lacoste, paying for advertising on conservative talk radio station Super Talk, which receives $600,000 in welfare funds. Wow. Y'all are just giving money away. Securing treatment for his nephew, Noah McRae, advertising services for welfare department or family first from Mississippi. So all those poor people down there didn't get this money and they were just having a good time passing the money around to each other. Mm-mm-mm. Many of these items are privileged and protected from discovery. Other responsive items are not privileged and should be produced subject to the entry of a protective order that preserves the integrity of these proceedings, the motion reads. So, look like Phil Bryan is trying to cover his behind in this whole thing. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, when I first heard the story, about Brett Favre. I knew it had to be way bigger than what we were hearing. And as you can see, it is huge. This is a huge story for real. But y'all, I'm not surprised at the nature of this because, I mean, these folks are so corrupt. Everything they put their hands on, they corrupt it. This is no different. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this story. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.